province. Mchunu served as both the Premier and the ANC chairperson in the province before he was removed from his seat after the 8th provincial elective conference that was held in 2015. Now, last week, the High Court in Pietermaritzburg ruled that the outcome of that elective conference was unlawful. Senzo Mchunu is joining us from our SABC studios in Durban. Thank you very, very much for joining us here on Morning Live.
Thank you very much, Leanne.
Right. In what capacity were you testifying before the Commission yesterday? Was it as the former Premier or as an ANC leader?
Well, I was invited or approached by the Secretary of the Commission to say that they would like me to come and testify if I was in a position to. Basically, as a citizen of the country and a resident of KwaZulu-Natal who has been exposed to a number of things as a result of what I've been doing in the past few years.
All right, so the answer to that basically is that you were there as a very concerned citizen of KwaZulu-Natal testifying. Now, this commission was set up by the current provincial Premier, Mchunu, yet the killings date back to 2014, in fact 2011, I think, if we have to be more accurate. What is your view on the killings during your tenure? Because this was when you were also in leadership positions.
Well, basically, I think all of us in the province, and I should assume that elsewhere, we condemn any form of violence, whether it is within the ANC or whether it's between the ANC and any other party, or whether it is outside the political arena. It's something that stands to be condemned every time it happens, and by all of us. And the one that the Commission is dealing with in terms of the terms of reference is violent incidents covering the period between 2011 and now. And basically, these are incidents that relate to the ANC internally and around the African National Congress and its allies. And all we're saying is that the ANC as an organization stands to lose in terms of its image, in terms of its support, in terms of its traditions, if it allows this kind of violence around it to proceed. And therefore, I think we need to stand united and condemn any form of violence driven by any form of a motive. There's just no excuse, and I think the party needs to come quite heavily on the reasons behind this, and also come out with ways to overcome it, because it's something that is really unnecessary.
Yeah. How though? Because I think you spoke about this also quite at length during your testimony yesterday. You spoke about the fact that meetings are moved at the last minute, that when it comes to trying to get tenders, this is also a very big problem, and the manipulation that occurs and the tension that is evident wherever you go within KwaZulu-Natal between different members. But this isn't anything that's new. It was there during your tenure as well. You're asking the leadership to step in, to set up systems to avoid this. But what did you do about it while you were there?
Well, the period that is covered between 2011, I wasn't necessarily the leader of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. I was just part of the Provincial Executive Committee. And by the time we went to elections in 2016, I was out of the leadership structure of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, but still supportive of whatever the leadership was doing and the ANC generally. So I would say yes, I went through a number of things, because basically, while we understand, all of us, the socio-economic situation in the country and in the province, and the exposure of many people due to unemployment and poverty and other social challenges, It's unacceptable that anyone could find an excuse and seek to realize their objectives, including in terms of dealing with hunger and so on, and unemployment, then seek to take shortcuts like killings and so on to deal with those particular problems. And we're saying that indeed we're experiencing quite a number of challenges within the organization where all manner of things are being used to get people into positions of power at local level, which cause tension which might be exploited by individuals for their own purposes. For instance, I mean, if in terms of when there's a local government election and there's to be a selection for a councillor in a ward and a PR, the best thing I think we need to do is to be sober and merely follow regulations and follow the guides and rules that are there, right from the beginning to the end, so that all of us are happy. The organization, the ANC, should be an organization that is free of strife and tension. It should be people of the people who are happy and otherwise committed to delivery of services. So things like manipulation, where you change venues, where you bring in bouncers, where you fight, where you change lease, where you chop and change, all of those things cause tension. And anyone who emerges out of such a process lacks credibility and conviction that, in fact, this is the will of the people. And I think it's something that is doing the organization down, and I think we should part ways of it. It's worse now when such tension leads to deaths and killings. It simply can't be acceptable.
So we saw last week the court ruling in your favor when it came to the fact that the ANC conference was, the election was not valid, that was what we saw happening in 2015 was not valid. Do you want to be Premier again? Would you like to see yourself back in that position?
No, not really. It's the ANC and government positions are not about individuals. They have never been about individuals. They are not about individuals, and they will never be about individuals. It's about justice and fairness in terms of our processes, credibility, so that we get respect. First, we must respect ourselves, and then we'll be respected by everybody. And so the question of positions is really overboard. What we're interested in is right now the issue of bringing unity, building the organization as a credible representative of the people, and you start dealing with issues of delivery. So it's never about individuals. It's not about me. It's not about
I find that difficult
any
to
other
believe,
position.
however. I understand what you're trying to say, but I find it a little bit difficult to believe that this is not about egos, that this is not about positions. I mean, we've got definite factions that are operating within KwaZulu-Natal. You've got your side, there's another side, there's those that support the President Jacob Zuma, there are those that are against him. There are many factions, and it is turning into a bit of a personality fight. So to say that it's not about individuals, I think I would say that's an incorrect statement to make.
It's actually a correct statement. You would remember, Leanne, that some of us for a long time were in the ANC, and there were no government positions really. We only began to get to government positions at a provincial level only in 2004. So for the greater part, it was just for the love of the organization, for sacrifice. Positions came as a by-the-way thing, not as something that made you stand up and start working because you were aiming at a particular position. In any case, you don't apply to be premier, don't apply to be MEC. You get appointed, and there's nothing that you do to be ready for a kind of an appointment.
You certainly do get appointed, but you need to have people, and you need to have people on your side. You need to have people on your side. And what's happening this weekend is we've got the NEC, the ANC NEC meeting, and I mean, we do look that there are factions, whether we like to believe it or not. There is going to be a discussion regarding political leadership within KwaZulu-Natal. What do you think could be the outcome of this when we do see at this time that the support lies perhaps not in your favor?
Well, now that there's an outcome of the court case, look, in terms of internal dynamics, it's true that there are differences. It's true that there are divisions. And it's also true that going to the conference nationally, there may be different views, although undesirable, because something that has never happened in the province, that we get divided the way we are at the moment. But it's something that we have to face up to, do whatever we can to minimize such divisions, because they don't build, they destroy. But then coming to this, now that the case is over, what we are saying is that those people who had grievances and those who supported those who had grievances and getting all the way up to court, it's time that we now say at least the court has listened to those grievances and an outcome has been declared. And we're now waiting for the National Executive Committee to interpret that and to tell us in terms of the way forward. Yeah, but by and large, we should be seeking to reach out for each other and make sure that we are united in the province and build the organization and go forward with our lives. Very quickly,
my final question, although there's so many more I want to ask you, do you fear for your life? It was very hard not to see yesterday that you even had your own bottle of water in front of you. In this province, you never know. I mean, there's stories of poisoning, there's stories of assassinations. You tell me, are you scared for your life?
Not at all. I think we come from the worst times in this province, with myself included. At some point when we were serving in the provincial executive under Spundebele, Comrade Spundebele, there was one time when we were sitting in a meeting and he says, "Comrades, is there any one of you who has never ducked a bullet and never escaped death by a whimper and so on?" And it was true that all of us who were in that meeting, there were about five of us, it was the officials, we had dodged dodged death by a whimper at some stage or the other. So I'm really not scared. But of course, it's not that I'm careless and I go everywhere and so on, because you have to look after yourself, but not because you are really scared and you have to look this way and this way. I'm just fine. I have a family. I live with my family. I have to care for their safety and so on, just like any other citizen in the country. But I don't have any nightmares at night and so on.
All right. We leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your views. Thank you for talking to us here on the program. Senzo Mchunu, who testified before the Moerane Commission of Inquiry yesterday, talking to us here on Morning Live. Thanks for your comments. We'll read some of them in a short while. Education under the spotlight, particularly with regard to matrics and the Second Chance Matric Support Program under discussion. Stay tuned.